Welcome to a stock price and news sentiment analysis. My name is Rafal and I'm representing Team 3. This is a proof of concept project that is meant to show correlation between news and stock prices. To do that, we leverage 3 data sets. The first one is a sentiment dictionary, which comes from Twitter. It contains words and a positive or negative score. The second is a scraped news data set from Nasdaq website. And the third one is a historical data set for stock prices downloaded from Yahoo Finance. The goal is to combine all 3 data sets to see if there is an impact on prices using a sentiment score derived from news. First, we'll be focusing on the sentiment data, which contains only 2 features, the term and its associated sentiment score on a scale from negative 10 to 10. Our initial exploration uncovered a heavy skewness towards the negative side. In order to fix the distribution, we normalized the values using a quantile transformer. This produced a more balanced range of values, which we leveraged to create a new feature called label. The label categories are positive, negative, or neutral. They're based on their position within the normalized set. Anything below the 25th percentile is negative. Anything above the 75th percentile is positive, and anything in between is neutral. This produced a list of labels that are highly impactful in either direction. Now we can move on to the Nasdaq news dataset. We created a custom scraper that looks up 10 latest articles and their metadata for all symbols in our portfolio. The code for scraping is attached as a separate notebook, so we can have a clean view here. Also, when scraping data, it's always a good idea, a good practice to save the results to a file and to continue working locally. First thing we did was to break down the contents of the articles into individual words, and then we looked them up in the sentiment dictionary and counted the number of occurrences for each label. This produced 2 values, a count of positive and a count of negative words found in each article. We then calculated the difference between the 2 and created a new feature called score. And using the score, we also created a label for each to indicate whether or not the entire article was more negative or more positive. Finally, we aggregated the score by symbol and date. For example, symbol ABMD on this date had a sum score sentiment of negative 14, and this includes all articles for that day for that symbol. Now that we have our sentiment dataset aligned with our news dataset, we can move on to the pricing data, and for that we leveraged the Yahoo Finance historical data. We extracted historical pricing for each symbol in our portfolio and proceeded to create a new feature called change, which is simply the difference between the close price and the open price. Finally, we merged all data sets, so the sentiment, the news data set, and the price into a simplified view that produced the date, the sentiment score, and the price change for each day and each stock. As a sample here, we picked ABMD. So with this simplified data set, we are now able to visualize the results. And here's a time series chart that shows stock price fluctuations on top and the sentiment score on the bottom. That gives us a neat way to align the two and see the impact of news on prices. We use ABMD stock as an example, and we can see that there is a movement, or the movement of news sentiment somewhat aligns with the price changes. You can see the spike up here increased the stock price, and also the negative trend on the sentiment also decreased the growth of this stock. To further evaluate the impact of sentiment score on prices, we used a regression plot. This plot shows a clear trend pointing upwards, which means that the price change is increasing in a positive direction with the sentiment score. So you can see, even though we have highly negative overall indication of the news, the direction of this chart is pointing towards more positive sentiment score and a bigger increase in price. Lastly, we explored a possibility of building entire portfolios using sentiment scores. As a proof of concept, we explored other stock price information, such as last sale, to create the most optimal portfolios. And we leveraged network analysis and the island method to distill the companies with the highest potential. Here's the island method, and we simply divide it into multiple islands to find only the companies with the highest potential of growth based on the sentiment score. And we visualize a second to last island here. You can see a lot of companies with positive sentiment in their news, and also a more granular view, or more detailed view, into the most optimal portfolio using the sentiment score. So to summarize, we transformed and combined multiple data sets to derive hidden insights. And even though we worked with a small data set, we were able to uncover a correlation between the stock price fluctuations and the news sentiment. And finally, we proposed that it is even possible to build portfolios or adjust your portfolios using the sentiment score. Thank you.